Welcome to Cast, where bold ideas meet real execution. From breakthrough technology to business strategy to the people building what's next, this is where the conversations happen. No theory, just real insights from industry leaders and innovators shaping the future. Hosted by Waruna Kulawancha, CEO of Six Senses. Let's get into it.
Those pattern recognitions are what AI, in a very simplistic way, are about. That led into this AI revolution that we are in the middle as we speak. It's all about the availability of data. If you really want to do things day in, day out in the same way, your job might be endangered.
AI is sending shockwaves around the world. There's a deeper question. Are we actually building intelligent machines, or are we misunderstanding what intelligence really is? Welcome back to Sixcast, coming to you from Toronto. We explore the intersection of technology, business, leadership, and major shifts shaping our world. AI is sending shockwaves around the world. Leaders are struggling to adapt. Workers are struggling to adopt, and everyone is talking about them. But beneath all the excitement and hype, there's a deeper question. Are we actually building intelligent machines, or are we misunderstanding what intelligence really is? To explore that question, I'm joined by someone who sits right at the intersection of AI, business, and education. Murat Kristal. Murat, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Varuna.
Murat has a PhD in operations, technology and innovation management from the University of North Carolina, and is a professor at Schulich School of Business, where he leads the Schulich Tech MBA program, and he's also the executive director of the Institute of Digital Business. He has spent years studying AI, machine learning, and analytics that reshape organizations' work and decision making. And Murat, before we dive into the bigger questions around AI and the future of the work, tell us a little bit about the work you've been doing around business intelligence, analytics, AI, machine learning, and what have you been focusing over the past few years?
Thank you. That's a nice question, I guess, to begin with. My career starts with data. So in all of my studies, papers, publications, my focus areas is all about understanding what data represents for organizations. When I first started my career, you would even deal with smaller data sets. There are actually statistical procedures to deal with smaller data sets because the significance of the calculations are different than when you have larger data sets. Over time, especially starting in Azans, what started to happen is we started to have more and more data available through IoT applications, through web applications, through transactional data, through supply chain data, that the data that we accumulated seriously got larger. That's when, if you look into the literature in 2000s, then you're starting to see this term called big data, for example. That was a major turning point because big data, the larger data sets, allowed us to do certain applications, certain calculations, so to speak, that were not available with smaller data sets. It led into this AI revolution that we are in the middle as we speak. It's all about the availability of data.
Interesting. Now, in our early conversations, you said something that really stuck with me. That was AI isn't really intelligence, and it's a pattern recognition. Really interesting take on AI. Yet the entire world talks about AI being machines that can think. What do you think people fundamentally misunderstand about AI today? I think that's probably also why people are getting anxious. Are there going to be job replacement? Will there be robots doing our jobs? And what are we going to be? Are we going to become obsolete?
That's a great question. In order to understand artificial intelligence, we also need to first look into the concept of learning.
Right.
Because without really understanding how learning takes place, you cannot talk about intelligence, let alone artificial intelligence. And there is also the part of the learning is also creativity and innovation. So let's start with learning. What is learning in the most simplistic manner? The learning is an if-then algorithm. Let's say that you were a 2-year-old kid or a 3-year-old kid, and then you're playing in your living room and you have a fireplace. And then you crawl to that fireplace, and then you just touch the side of the fireplace and your hand burns. Next time, you don't go next to that. The simplistic if-then structure would be, if I touch the fireplace, my hands burn, I won't do it again. Now, that is in winter. Then you go and then maybe forget about that learning. And in summer, you touch the fireplace again and your hands don't burn. There is something happening there. I touched it 3 months ago. My hands burned. Now I'm touching it. There is nothing because the fireplace is cold. Now your brain will go through what happens next. Under what conditions do I touch? Those are those if-then algorithms. Our brain processes them very fast, and then we act upon based upon our previous learnings. Now let's take that if-then structure in a very simplistic way and then apply to intelligence, how intelligence is formed. What we coin with the term as artificial intelligence, it's more about understanding and recognizing these patterns that are in our large data sets. So these large data sets allow us to create patterns. And then based upon those patterns, we can identify objects, we can do automation, so on and so forth. It builds upon each other.
Yeah.
But as you can see, what it lacks there, when you have pattern recognition, because there's an if-then structure, very similar to the kid who touches the fireplace, recognizes it's hot, doesn't touch it again. Those pattern recognitions are what AI in a very simplistic way are about. And what AI can do with the introduction of the LLMs, that these patterns that are recognized by the machines can then be broken down its smaller components. And when you combine these smaller components in a different way, you then start creating new stuff. But that new stuff comes from the existing data, the existing stuff that has been loaded into the system.
Yeah.
It's not like a musician who comes up with a song based upon their creativity, even though if you start looking into the music, you would see certain influences from previous composers. You would see people talking about, oh, I was influenced by this other individual that came before me. So humans also do that, but there is a part of creativity that is not inherent within AI systems.
And some of the AI pioneers, I did a little bit of research on this, and some of the AI pioneers like Jan LeCun had said, today's AI systems are really good pattern recognizers. And Gary Marcus, an AI researcher, said deep learning is sophisticated curve fitting.
Yes.
That really goes aligns with what you believe, what your theory is as well. And this is a bit of a funny one, which is Noam Chomsky said, current AI systems are high-tech plagiarism. And I think, and I went to this kind of rabbit hole to understand what. Is it really intelligence? Is it pattern recognition? Is Murat right? Is it something that he believes, or is it there's some substance onto it? And through my research, I found this term was coined in 1956 Dartmouth conference. This is long before modern machine learning, where it was at that time research had believed that machines might soon achieve human level thinking, but what actually advanced fastest was statistical learning. So just wanted to take a little bit of a segue from there. Do you think AGI will get closer to that human level reasoning?
We need to see the data before we can answer that question, because when you build a machine, when you have let's go back to that 1950s, right? Because this is the main Turing test that you're referring to.
Mm-hmm.
Alan Turing was a brilliant mathematician. I mean, he's best known for his work in cryptography, also breaking the Enigma machine. It all starts with understanding what the Germans were doing, how they used to communicate, and then the Brits were trying to break that communication pattern. So, I mean, I'm sure that your viewers watched that movie where Alan Turing and his efforts were showed. In that kind of a setting, you are really trying to understand these patterns, how they take place, and then they are hidden behind a layer in a typewriter type of a machine, the Enigma machine. And then you try to understand what is happening. And what you do is, if you can catch one pattern in that one simple pattern, and then start peeling from that simple pattern to the rest of what the codes were telling you, now you are breaking the code. That breaking of the code is all about the patterns. When we talk about artificial general intelligence, the AGI that you're referring to, now it's not only patterns or the data, but the machine will start creating those patterns, those thinkings by itself. So for AGI truly be AGI, general artificial intelligence, there has to be a disconnect to a certain degree from the existing data, whatever that data might be, to creation of new data by the machine. And before making any claims, I would like to see how that works. Because I cannot make a claim, no, it will not work, or it will work, or this is the future. We need to see before we make a judgment on that front.
You believe that you want to see the facts and data set, analyze that first before we...
Yes, before you even make any judgments, because everything that we do for now, as of today, when we are using AI, it all comes from data. But when Mozart wrote his symphonies, he sat down and wrote it. That is not happening with the AI today. And I don't know that would happen with the AGI, artificial general intelligence, often. It might come very close.
Right. The next question, particularly around the real world problems, junior versus senior talent in the AI era, and as well the end of software jobs. I saw a post, I can't verify that though. Anthropic CEO had said at an event recently, apparently, that software, at least the entry-level jobs, are going to be replaced within, rather, they become obsolete within the next 6 to 12 months. There's a lot of discussion around about the software engineering or any desk job for that matter. And some AI leaders, including Anthropic CEO, I think I also saw a tweet from Sam Altman who had said, thank you for all the coders who had brought us where we are today. And he's like, no, thank you very much. And what got you here is not going to get you there. Kind of message, a subtle message. I saw that in that X message. So do you see this as a realistic outcome, or will there be more transformation of the role rather than the elimination of software engineers? And a lot of undergraduate students, you probably have come across them as well. They are probably getting anxious now.
That is a topic, right? that is a topic of discussion and everybody is anxious about it, and rightfully so. Rightfully so, because if I'm used to do a certain process as a coder, this is what I need to code. I create this many lines of code. When my boss asks me, I create that, I give it to him, and I justify my existence within an organization. Now, if that code that I create can be created, I spent 10 hours to create that, and then AI algorithm creates that in 5 minutes. All of a sudden, I'm like, wow, what am I supposed to do? They can create it faster, and chances are in a better way, because there is research that shows the AI algorithms create more efficient codes than humans do.
Mhm.
So the way that I see this is, it's like any technological innovation. I mean, let's go back to 1800s, to the Victorian times, when we have the steam engine coming up, right?
Yeah.
If you look into the number of people that were required to work in a farm before and after the introduction of steam engine, and then introduction of steam engines into farm equipment, reduced dramatically. Why? Because now you didn't need the manpower to sow the grass or whatever that you were doing. 10 people were necessary. Now you can do it with 2 people. What happened to those 8 people, right? Did they just suffer? No, they just shifted their focus and find jobs. Chances are more fulfilling jobs moving forward. The same thing will happen with people who have white collar jobs, so to speak, because it's not only coders, it's also the lawyers, it's accountants. All of these jobs, every single job has and its core has 2 functions. One of them is you need to do repetitive tasks to achieve your job. There are certain things that you do over and over again, repeating that. And there's a part of your job that requires you to do thinking, problem solving, analyzing, connecting the dots. At this stage, with the current state of AI, what is happening is these repetitive tasks are being automated, and are being automated at a high speed. Those parts of your jobs actually will save you time, and then you will not have to do the boring stuff. What will be your competitive advantage, especially if you're a student or if you're thinking about an organization? The important parts of your job are actually your problem solving skills. How you connect the dots? How do you see a system working, and within that system, how can you make a change to improve that system to create a solution? So you will have more time to think creatively. So I don't see this as much as I understand the anxiety, rightfully so, for people who are striving to be the problem solvers, who connect the dots, there will be lots of opportunities opening themselves up. So it's a conundrum. If you really want to do things day in, day out in the same way, your job might be in danger. But if you're someone who would like to solve the problems, and then who doesn't like to do the repetitive tasks, your job actually will become even more exciting for you, because you can do the agentic AI, you can use the robots to do the boring parts of your job conducted by a machine, because they are repetitive tasks.
So you're thinking there will be a social and behavioral shift. And we have been, in the past several decades, I believe that we have been complacent.
Mhm.
I don't think, my point of view, I think we have become a little bit more lazy as a human race. I also believe that we focused on the wrong things instead of innovating and doing something exciting, as opposed to doing repetitive tasks for decades. So you believe that society will eventually evolve, and there will be more creators, there'll be more innovators, there'll be new things that people will create for evolution of the humankind.
Yes. This goes back to, we have some interesting analogies. If you look into the quality management literature, so we are talking about 1980s now. So we are not talking 2020, we are talking what, 46 years, 50 years.
Mhm.
When we start seeing the movement of quality management in manufacturing, that shifted the way that the organizations manufactured, right? One of the things that, as much as quality management was very helpful, what the workers found was it was stressful. Why it was stressful? It was stressful because total quality management requires the workers to identify if something goes wrong. Total quality management requires that the whole process stops, and then you need to go into the root cause of a mistake and then identifying that mistake. Why is it stressful? Because the workers who are used to do the same task over and over again, it's like meditating, right? You get into a repetitive task and then your mind can focus on the same thing that you are doing. And at some point that becomes very relaxing. The boundaries are well defined and the things that you need to do one after another is repetitive. It calms you down. It's less stress. Now, when something goes wrong, in the before total quality management, what would happen is something called quality control, which is different than total quality management, because total quality management is about removing the errors from the system. Quality control assumes that there will be an error, but that we are going to work the errors and not fix it.
More like a reactive.
Reactive. In order to achieve a proactive approach, you ask your people to think, to learn. That increases the stress levels of the workers. Now, come apply that to AI. There will be people who like to do things day after day the same way. Well, what they are doing, that part can be automated, which means if you're going to do it over and over again and some machine can do it faster for you, you're going to be feeling, oh my God, what am I supposed to do now?
Mm-hmm.
Goes back to how we started out this conversation. It's about learning. Now the system will force you as an individual to learn critical thinking, because the repetitive tasks that give you comfort can be done by a machine. So to your point, you're right. We are going to get more creative. We are going to be more productive or innovative because the repetitive tasks can be done by the machines. However, that is also going to cause a little bit of discomfort in the individuals who don't like to operate in unknown environments, because now your boundary conditions are changing.
Mm-hmm.
Previous way of we do work, our boundary conditions are very well defined. I need to do my tasks A, B, C, D, and that justifies my salary. Now the A, B, C, D, if they are very well defined tasks, can be done by the machine. What cannot be done by the machine? And that's where your human brain, your learning abilities get into the play.
You talked about critical thinking. I think critical thinking has been, over the years, has been declining among the general public, especially among the children, which is something that I'm really concerned about because I have two children. I think children are getting smarter, but I don't know, can we define generally, especially surrounding because of better nutrition? That's what I'm hearing out in the world. Kids are getting smarter, but are they really getting smarter? Excuse me. Do they have the critical thinking that children in 1800s would have? My daughter at that time was about 5 or 6, and I said to clean up her play area. She said, how do I do that? And she went into found a computer or maybe mom's computer and Google, how do I clean my play area? Oh, she spoke to it. She couldn't type. I think I saw that's a big signal about lack of critical thinking, how to clean up your play area. How do we keep up our critical thinking during this shift that is impacting societies these days? How do we keep our curiosity up? We are disturbed by hyperconnected devices. I find people in general are exhausted with the amount of content they consume. The better part of their brain is wasted on thinking about other people's problems and talking about them, as opposed to 1800s or early 1900s, where people didn't have that many communication methods. How do we stay curious? How do we focus on improving our critical thinking?
Well, that starts from when you're young, right? You're right. Like I have also 3 children. Where does innovation come from? In most cases, innovation comes from a need. You have a need and then you're banging your head on the wall. How do I solve this problem? How do I solve that problem? And if that need becomes really crucial for your survival, you end up coming up with a solution. And that solution may or may not work in your first try, but if you're persistent enough, you might be able to come with a solution that will, solve that problem. What I'm trying to get at is in today's world, especially with the help of technology, you reduce that need, right? Because everything is readily available to you.
100%.
So if everything is available to you, how do you create a problem-solving capability?
Yes.
If everything was not readily available to you, if your daughter didn't have the microphone or the phone to talk into the Google, hey, Google, tell me how am I going to clean my room, at some point, she will have to figure that one out, or he will have to figure that one out by himself or herself. And in that process, maybe she wouldn't do it right. Maybe she would just pile up everything to the corner of the room, so the rest of the room is clean, but every single toy is piled up. And then you walk in the room and then say, oh, this part is great. But what about this pile? What are we going to do with it? That will create another problem for her to solve.
Yes.
Those things are taken away from us. So we need to be a little bit aware that the conveniences of the modern day life, how do we approach these conveniences, and whether or not allow us, or whether we let ourselves allow these modern day conveniences to cover or obstruct our critical thinking, problem solving skills. So for your kids, or my kids, it's very important to be able to innovate, play with a cardboard, because they make that cardboard a car, a spaceship, whatever. They put something on it and I say, now and it's not a fancy machine. It's not a fancy toy that you buy, but that cardboard is way more important for our kids to play with than a fancy toy that they would get. You need to be able to foster critical thinking. And lately I am recognizing sometimes these statements are very simplistic. Critical thinking skills are very important. You can say that to your students all around, but what does it really mean?
Yeah.
We need to start filling up those statements with more concrete examples, opening up what that really means, so that our students, or your kids, my kids, can really understand what that means, so that they can start acting. Otherwise, people will see one statement and I said, yeah, that makes sense, but that dismiss it. We need to start filling those statements, critical thinking skills. Why? Under what conditions? What is the example?
Yeah.
We do lack that guidance.
Do you think we should take a step back, take it slowly, and be disconnected to start with, and going to a library and read a book, leave a device. I think the theory or our suggestion for our kids should be applied to us as well.
Yes.
Sometimes we are trying to solve problems through machines, and we chat with AI bots and try to find the right solution. Instead, maybe we should just get ourselves disconnected from everything. Think logically, think humanly. Okay, here's a problem. Here's the solution. How do we get there without technology? And then find, once you have that critical pillars set up, now you adopt technologies to fix the path.
That's absolutely correct. And understanding how the world works, getting into the fundamentals, a good grasp of STEM topics, science, mathematics, biology. We seem to be drifting away from these fundamentals. We need art, philosophy. When you have these foundations within you, then the technology and the AI is a force multiplier, because you're not relying on AI blindly. You can ascertain whenever it gives you some kind of a suggestion, you can actually assess the validity of that prompt or the validity of that answer. So going to the basics, understanding the fundamentals will enable you to use the tools way more effectively.
Yes.
Rather than if my students do exams, assignments, you can load an assignment into any LLM that is available. It will create an answer.
Yes.
But is that the answer? Or you actually start thinking about the question, you ascertain different aspects of this question, looking from different vantage points and asking questions, and then it creates 10 different answers. From those 10 different answers, you say, I like answer number 1, answer number 2, answer number 3. And then you combine those answers, and then that reflects your understanding. Is a completely different way of using an AI system rather than entering the question, give me the answer. In the second example, enter the question, give me the answer. You literally remove yourself from and if you continue with that logic, yes, you are replaceable. But on the other one, you look into the question and then now you start thinking, did the teacher, did the professor ask, why did they ask this question? What are the different parts of this question? Can I break this question into its multiple segments? What are the boundary aspects of this question? The answer that I'm going to give, is it general, or does it work for certain conditions and it doesn't work for other conditions? Things, if in the old days it would have taken you a week to complete that assignment, but using technology, now if you ask these different questions that to get different viewpoints, you're going to learn. And then how you're going to combine all of these different answers will increase your ability. It's called absorptive capacity. It's in the organizational learning literature. There's something called absorptive capacity. Your absorptive capacity will increase because now you're looking into the different viewpoints, or you approach the problem from different angles. If you were to do that 10 years ago, this would have taken you 2 weeks. Now it can take you a day or 2. And that's helpful. But in order to be able to do that, you really need to understand the fundamentals. So yes, back to your question, picking up a book can be the best thing that we can do in this age of AI.
And I think it reminds me that when we are hiring people as well, I want people to be able to leverage AI. At the same time, most importantly, I want people to be able to think on their feet first. If they do not, without any technology, they probably are not going to be the right fit. Because if they don't understand the human fundamentals, human requirements, fundamentals, you're not going to be able to solve. You just put everything into an AI model and just get answers. I can get a script or an agent to do it.
Yes.
I don't need a person. I don't have to pay X amount of dollars a year to do that. We want people to. So that really opens up our conversation into something that our listeners and viewers can get something very valuable, that it's not that AI is going to take away, but if you business leaders and humankind will always look for the human capabilities.
Let's take a concrete example. Let's say that you have a client, that the client approached you and I said, Maruna, I need to solve this business problem. I need to create a marketing campaign, or I need to do this, I need to do that. The problem that you are solving there is not creating a code or creating a CRM dashboard, and that will maybe a system that is going to send the emails to the potential client base. Problem that you are solving is, how am I going to connect this individual's organization with its potential clients? And we want the potential clients to respond to this marketing campaign in a positive way, because this organization has a solution to their problems.
Mm-hmm.
This is the approach that we need to start taking. Now, how that is going to be operationalized, right? You might need to create the dashboard. You might need to look into the segmentation of the customers. You might need to create some sort of a UX design that is going to help you send the email, so on. So those are the mechanics. AI is helping us to deal with the mechanics in a much efficient way.
Correct.
But it's not helping you to deal with the real problem. The real problem, your customer's problem was, I have this organization, I have this solution, I want to be able to solve people's, other companies' problems. Here's a good problem statement. How do I get my message? How do I find or engage with people who have these problems so that they can see my solution and get my product or my services? That is the real question that you're trying to solve. So if people are now focusing on solving that real question, the rest becomes the mechanical part of it. And working with people who focus on that is more fulfilling for everybody.
Yeah. And during our early conversations, we are coming to the end, towards the end of our conversation. Do you think modern education has trained people to produce answers as opposed to understanding the systems?
Yes. Even in math or even in physics, the way that the questions ask is that you have a mathematical problem. Hey, here's a ball rolling down the hill with 10 kilometers per hour. The height of the hill is 30 meters. When the ball goes down at the bottom of the hill, what is the energy of that ball? And then you might assume friction as 0. You can put that into a very nice mathematical equation, and then you can calculate based on the speed, the weight, the height. You can say, hey, at the bottom of the hill, this ball will have such and such kilowatts or energy or power, whatever it is. The real question is, why does the ball accelerate when you're coming down the hill? The real question is, what happens to the ball? What was it up when it was on top of the hill? What happened to the state of the ball when it comes down the hill? What has changed? When you understand that, then going back and then figuring out the calculations becomes easy and becomes meaningful. But the way that we teach is that here's a formula, this is how you calculate it. And then what you would do as a student, you would do the calculation, you would get a good grade from your exam, and guess what? The minute that you walk out from your final or the last day of classes, what every student tells us, oh, you forget things. Why? Because you didn't really understand how it worked.
Yeah.
When you understand how it worked, that stays with you.
Yes.
And the interesting thing, you would still forget about the mechanics of that calculation. But guess what? If in need, once you understand how that system works, you can go back and then figure out the mechanics of that calculation very easily, even 10 years after.
That is correct. That's correct. That takes me to one of the professors had said at some point, don't worry about the grades, but they matter to a certain extent, but it's about what you learn.
I tell that to my students. I mean, in my digital transformation class this year, I tried something different as a midterm. I gave our students a midterm exam, and then I said to them, hey, you're the chief digital transformation officer. Here is a situation, not everything is rosy. So you need to make choices. You need to, maybe cut programs, or you need to go after certain programs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not after the right or wrong answer, but what I am after is, how do you rationalize? How do you support your decisions? And why? Again, it goes back into the understanding of how a system works. It's not about, I created 10,000 dashboards, and when I was creating these 10,000 dashboards, I spent this much money and I had this many hours. I solved a problem. And this is the way I propose to solve the problem. And here are my reasons. Mechanics, we can figure it out.
Right. So to wrap up the conversation, what advice, if you could summarize from our conversation, what advice can you give to students or fresh grads who are starting off their careers, or seasoned professionals and leaders for the next decade? What should they do?
Read, but slowly. Read interesting things, not only business literature, but read classics, read how things came into place, and have curiosity. And instead of how you have this fear of running behind, everybody has that.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Everybody, yes.
But take your time. When you're reading something, really get into the detail of that. And then maybe read the footnotes. And then from those footnotes, you might end up finding another book or another article. Go deeper. Go understand that. That requires time. That requires patience. But if you do that, then you start understanding how things are working. You're now understanding the system. I'm not saying that they should only read technical books or business books.
Yes.
I'm talking about read philosophy. Why a philosopher makes a certain comment. What was the historical context when they made that claim? Oh my God, now you have another 10 books to read. Yes, that's when you do that, when you start understanding systems working, when you start understanding solving the problems, then the time that we spend on the mechanics of that with the technology, we can figure that part out relatively easy in today's world.
Interesting. That's a fascinating thought. Read, but read slowly. Sometimes I feel that, am I reading fast enough? Sometimes I go through a couple of pages. It takes about a month at times to go through and analyze, okay, is it true? And then forget about
what is it really saying to you, right? Like read the paragraph, think about it, then go back, read it again. Because when you read it twice, 3 times over time, what you're going to understand is completely different.
Yes.
That is the part that you need to take time. You might read 100 books a day.
Yes.
Did you really learn anything from those 100 books a day?
I agree.
Or you read one book in 100 days.
Very, very, very strong point, actually. I think we are all in this race to achieve some sort of a ideal future, ideal state of our lives. And if you don't, you feel like that, the FOMO, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're missing out because this guy or this woman, or they're doing so much, and they've done so much. They drive this, they have built this, but I'm falling behind. End of the day, I was speaking to someone who's going through a different, certain challenge in her life, expecting a baby, and she was saying that, am I going to fall behind? I said, world will be there. Take a year off, come back, and you'll come back more refreshed. But just because you took some time off, or you missed out on certain networking sessions or business meetings, it's not going to make a huge change. What has really changed from last year to this year? Really, Murat, it just world became a bit more chaotic than last year. That's all that happened after all. Murat, this has been a fascinating conversation. Thank you very much for sharing your insights and wisdom on AI, work, and life in general, because we are in going deeper into a rabbit hole where sometimes we go into that hole that we cannot even come out anymore. And these are questions that leaders, anyone, students, professionals, anyone can apply to themselves and make their lives better. And thank you again. And to everyone listening, thank you for spending time with us. And this is Gus coming to you from Toronto. We'll see you next time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for listening to Sixcast. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to our channel, like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Follow Sixcast on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, Facebook, and TikTok for more insights. To connect with us, visit sixsenses.com. Until next time, keep building. Bye-bye.